In the last lesson, we saw how to duplicate surface curves to create curves that match a surface. Another way to do this is to draw the curves directly on the surface. And these are called curves on surface. So let's create a simple NURBS object and show you how that works. So I'm going to create a NURBS plane. So I'm going to go into Create, NURBS Primitive, Plane. And I'm just going to go ahead and drag out a plane. And I'm actually going to turn off the grid so we can see this. And then in my inputs here, I'm going to go ahead and change my patches to, say, 3 and 3. So that gives me just a little bit more detail. Now, this is just a NURBS patch. And if I wanted to, I could take my control vertices and move them around, reshape it, do whatever I want. But a NURBS patch is basically a 2D object that's been deformed in 3D. So instead of X and Y coordinates, we have U and V. And now we can use those to draw curves along the U and V axis that stick to the surface. Now the way that we do this is that we turn the surface live. So what I do is I go over to my snap settings, and this one here makes the selected object live. And when that happens, we'll be able to draw directly on this surface. So let's go ahead and do Create Curve Tools, CV Curve Tool. And as I start to click, you'll see that these CVs stick to this surface. So if I click up here, I can't get anything. I have to click on the surface. And so I'm locked in basically a 2D drawing paradigm. But instead of X and Y, I'm drawing in U and V on the patch. So if I were to hit Enter, I get this curve on the surface. Now I can select this curve and move it using my Move tool. But notice how it sticks to the patch. I can't move it up or down. There's really no Y controls here. This is actually stuck to this object. If I were to right-click, select Control Vertices, and move those again, I'm only getting motion along the U and V axis. And this is great because what we have now is we have a curve that is basically stuck to the surface. Now, if I want to deform the surface, I have to turn off live. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle that off. And I can select this surface. And if I select Control Vertex here, I can move the surface and the curve will follow. Now, if I select the curve itself, I can also do operations. So if I select this, I could go into Curves and maybe do an open close. I would close that curve, and then I could open it again. Now, I can also duplicate this curve. So if we go into Curves, Duplicate Surface Curves, I get another curve. Now, notice how my Y direction is now enabled, and that's because this is a separate curve that is linked to this. Now, because I have history turned on, this particular curve will reflect the originating curve. So if I right-click over this and go into Control Vertex and maybe reshape the originating curve, notice how the duplicated curve follows along. Now, if we go back into object mode, we can also use this to create a surface. And very similar to how we did before, I could select this curve on surface and then shift select the other curve, and we can do Surfaces Loft. And when I do that, it creates this surface, and the surface is black on the outside. That means that it's reversed. And so all we have to do is go Surfaces, Reverse Direction, and that flips it around. So now I have this surface that's locked to my originating patch. So if I were going to Control Vertex mode and move these, notice how this all kind of sticks together. So hopefully you can see some of the possibilities of this for connecting surfaces together in NURBS. So a NURBS surface can be turned into a drawing pad by making it live. Then we can draw curves onto that surface and use those curves to attach other objects.